Hello, this is Raul Ramirez with the Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we keep real wrestling alive. This is kind of an unusual time for our live stream, but figured might as well do it right now because just wanted to make sure that we connected. Hopefully, if you're online right now and watching, feel free to uh, feel free to ask questions or make comments or whatever. Actually, let me go and it's kind of making a reflection here. This, if you're seeing the live stream, there's a photo, or there's a picture frame here. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, so that should be a little bit more clear there. So just want to let you guys know or give you an update that we started the classes at UCLA. I was unfortunately telling everybody on the live stream that we the classes were open to everybody, and unfortunately, that's not the case. It's only for UCLA students. I didn't know that just because it's a public university, so any member of the public can join the gym. It's called the John Wooden Center. It's one of the best gyms around. Really, it has like top notch. Like equipment and stuff. So it's like as a gym, it's really excellent. But I guess the classes are only for students. So I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I totally was confused by that. But if you're a student, if you're a UCLA student, go for it. It's like they have multiple passes, so you can sign up for a specific class. So if you only want to take one day or whatever, you can sign up for that one day or 2 days, or you can do like what's called an all-inclusive pass. So you can take all of the martial art classes you want. So yeah, they have a wide range of stuff. So that includes like boxing and various forms of grappling, karate, and even ninjutsu and stuff. So I was actually thinking about maybe taking that one because like on Thursday, no, sorry, Wednesday, it's like ninjutsu actually starts after my class, and then they use the same room that I'm in or that I use. So that might be pretty interesting to take ninjutsu, um, like just to see what it's about. Because what's cool about the UCLA martial arts classes is that they actually get like experts. So say like, hey, I'm teaching, so um, and but the ninjutsu instructor, I spoke with her yesterday, and I guess it's like it's been there for a while, and it's some sort of like legit like lineage from I don't know how old or whatever, but so same thing even with like we have jujitsu and all the other different martial arts. Oh, there's this other karate style. I don't know the name because like I don't remember. It has a specific name, but yeah, it's some sort of kind of like a famous style, and it's not like one of the big kickboxing ones that we would know, like Shotokan or something like that. It's another one, but it's like they have kind of like legit styles with whatever history and stuff like that. So that's what's pretty cool about UCLA martial arts or the recreation department. So UCLA martial arts is under the recreation department, and the coordinator right now, he really cares about having a wide variety of martial arts. I think because he himself went through like the Inosanto Academy. So that's for those of you who don't know what that is that's actually a school here in Los Angeles. It is Dan Inosanto. If you don't know who he is that he was one of Bruce Lee's like students, but he was already a martial artist, um, and so anyway, so he was big time connected with Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee was into mixing different styles and whatnot, finding what works for you and all that. And anyway, so now his school is, we call it kind of West LA. I don't know if it's officially like Culver City, but it's closer to the beach and they're kind of around Venice. And so the main coordinator for UCLA is a student of that Santo Academy. And so since they're all about like having learning from different styles and all that, so his name is Paul. So Paul tries to have a really top-notch martial arts program at UCLA. He told me that he came from a different university. I think like there's other university. I believe it is in um, Illinois, maybe. Oh no, Indiana, I believe. So, university in Indiana has like a very extensive martial arts program, and so it's actually considered one of the best, like kind of like university gyms. And but what Paul was telling me is that this university requires the students to be taking these classes at least once or something like that, maybe at least one semester or something like that. So UCLA, none of these classes are required. So it's all like whatever, whoever wants to be there goes. So we're doing it different, but we're still having an extensive program anyway. So it's really top notch. So if you happen to be a UCLA student, take advantage. When I was a student, I didn't know about that right when I first joined, or right, not joined, but right when I first became a student. I discovered the John Wooden Center later. But once I did, then I was like there all the time, and I took um, all kinds of martial arts there, and it's one of the reasons why I discovered catch wrestling. We didn't have a catch wrestling class there. We had jujitsu, but my background was in Chinese kickboxing and also did Chinese wrestling. We also even had sumo there. But with that background, I did very well in the jujitsu classes. And so that kind of led me to believe that there has to be more to grappling, or there has to be a grappling style that kind of fit better with my understanding of grappling. And then that led me to research, and I found catch wrestling. And so it was because of like my experience at the John Wooden Center really that got me into catch wrestling. And so that's like that's how it went, right? So let's go ahead and try to get into the subject of today, which is actually kind of inspired by people's comments online, but also even some of the students who are taking my class at UCLA now. Because I think this is something that comes up often, and I think we should kind of address it because there's so many different aspects to this subject. So, is catch wrestling too good to be true? Okay, so what do you see when you see images of catch wrestling? One of the things that like I appreciate the past a lot, and there's so many really great and amazing wrestlers in catch wrestling history, um, and so many amazing stories, really, even with the athletes themselves or with promoters, or really, really, really amazing. But I think a lot of times catch wrestling, or at least people who nowadays who are trying to promote catch wrestling, they're really stuck in the past. And even the fans, I mean, so like if I post like an old picture, that tends to get a lot of likes. If I post an old picture like on social media or whatever, people really seem to like that. It's cool. I like it too, but as opposed to a new picture, like from one of our events. Um, I think sometimes the older picture might get more likes, right? Um, so that being said, I want to try to connect it to like, is there some kind of mythical past of catch wrestling? Because back in the heyday of catch wrestling, catch wrestlers were really dominating. They were dominating judo players and jujitsu practitioners. Um, so when you see catch wrestling advertised nowadays, does it seem too good to be true? Not exactly, actually. It is great. It is still great, and it's not too good to be true. But when you actually have an instructor that knows what they're doing, and knows authentic catch wrestling very well, then you can be getting some really great results in grappling competition. Right. So, kind of one of the experiences that I've seen based on like comments or even in teaching, especially like at UCLA, we have like a lot of students trying the classes. And then, one of the things is like, because like in wrestling, we don't mind giving up our back, right? So giving the back to your opponent is actually a really good defensive move. Um, and um, it's not really dangerous. And especially like say if you're doing nogi grappling and you know how to defend against chokes, which isn't too difficult, then really giving up your back shouldn't be much of a problem whatsoever, and it shouldn't be considered a big no-no. So when you get people coming from more of a jujitsu background, when they really try to talk about how it is a huge red flag, or it's like a big thing that you cannot do when you're grappling, then um, then it that kind of gets ingrained, and that is actually you'll hear people like in like say commentators for MMA talking about, oh, they're giving up their bag, oh, the choke is coming and this and that. And like hopefully those of you who follow this channel for a little while, you've seen where it's like it was just a few months ago this year where high level grappler Gary Tonin could not submit a low level grappler in his MMA fight. He was still able to take the back and try to do the chokes and all that. But the low level Japanese, the Japanese fighter was like a big time karate guy. So he's a higher level karate guy, and I think he could have won or should have won that fight if he just, focused on his strikes. He really hit Gary a lot with great strikes, but I think maybe he was a little too respectful to Tonin, and so maybe he felt like he would, if he threw too much, then maybe he would get a leg caught or an arm caught. But I think because he was able to escape several times, then he should have been emboldened to just let his hands and legs go. I think he even kneed Tannen in the face like one time. So, if he just kept that up, I think he would have won that fight, if not got a knockout. Right. So, um, with that being said, it's like these people, like say the commentators and stuff, when when they see even a high level grappler take someone's back, people are they're commentating saying that, oh, this is the beginning of the end, or oh, so then that translates to the audience thinking it's the beginning of the end. And but what happened in the fight, the lower level grappler did not get finished. And so this I'm just offering this as some evidence. There's plenty of evidence out there that saying that that giving up your back is not the end of the world, and plenty of people in professional situations, including MMA and grappling, have escaped these scenarios. And it doesn't mean that, like say, giving up your back or whatever doesn't mean that you're a lower level grappler whatsoever. Um, so these but I think, say, like the mainstream idea or the mainstream notion of grappling has changed, right? Because back in the day when catch wrestling dominated, these types of defensive positions, like that we call referee's position in the United States, um, were not considered like a bad thing. It wasn't necessarily considered the best thing, right? Like so, um, like if you were the person on bottom, it was obviously better to not like pin yourself, so not face your opponent. Is actually better to and a stronger position to be in that referee's position, because you also had many opportunities, right? And you had many opportunities to do different techniques. So that would include standing back up or trying to get some reversals, right? So that's these are the things that, so like even nowadays we're having, I think there was like a DVD out there, an instructional DVD calling themselves Turtle Guard and stuff like that. So showing that there's a lot of truly catch wrestling and wrestling techniques that come from giving up your back or whatever. So we call it like referee's position. Um, so there's no real need to like think that way, but again, just try to almost see like how you've been conditioned mentally by the mainstream. So it totally happens in all kinds of scenarios where it might take a long time for ideas to change. So kind of like even in the scientific community, which is unfortunate, you'll have some like these hardliners where they might believe that uh, maybe something that they've discovered in their lifetime is the end all be all of some kind of like medical treatment, but then new research comes out showing that another treatment might be better. But you'll have this whole camp where they don't want to like take in the new information, and so sometimes you even have to wait until these people die before the more advanced knowledge, makes it to the mainstream, which is unfortunate because with regards to medicine and stuff, you can save a lot of lives if everything was more like if more effective treatment was available all across the world. But unfortunately, we have like these different camps, and sometimes you literally have to wait for some of these uh these cavemen to die. Right, so people with this this type of mentality. So back to grappling, what are we seeing in grappling? Right, we're seeing really even some famous grapplers or famous grappling coaches talking about the benefits of different aspects of wrestling, right? So usually, like if one of the most famous ones, John Danaher, right? So if he says something positive about grappling, you'll hear about it from me because people are sharing all his like his posts because they're thinking it's so full of wisdom and all that. And so I definitely get it comes around to me even seeing it. So um, that's why I share it with you, because it's interesting that someone who is really well known for nogi is talking about the benefits of wrestling. He talks about all kinds of things where it's like we even talked about the benefits of pinning, right? And because it's what I've seen is that say like up until John Danaher like approves of something about wrestling, then a lot of the comments say if I talk about pinning, right? Like maybe people will be commenting that pinning is useless and worthless and this and that. And then, but if John Danaher then puts his post out about the benefits of pinning and how pinning somebody can lead to getting a submission, and then after that, it's like it's crickets all of a sudden, right? So this is kind of I'm trying to give you some examples, right, of how um, like the mainstream idea. So it's like jujitsu when they organized the first UFC for like the Gracie family and organized the first UFC event to showcase jujitsu. That was kind of like an awakening for the public, right? And so then they were I guess they absorbed a lot of these notions, and then jujitsu really spread all over the world, right? Because catch wrestling had almost gone extinct and all that. So um, these ideas kind of really spread and took over like the mainstream. So that's why when I teach catch wrestling and I'm talking about these things, or since we're kind of talking about like the easiest example about like say giving up your back, which is a defensive position in catch wrestling. If if I'm teaching and then maybe some new student who's really influenced by MMA or jujitsu, they see it and then they'll comment like, "Oh, but that's giving up your back. You shouldn't do that." And I'm like, "Well, it's just because you have that mainstream thought way of thinking or whatever, and but the it's not the end all be all truth of even grappling, right? So that's one of the things that um you can think of where it's like, is catch wrestling too good to be true, where you have these things where a lot of the different techniques that nowadays seem odd, so then people aren't necessarily incorporating them. And so that's kind of another aspect where it's like this was a few years ago where um, like someone was trying to comment about, of course, all the professional MMA fighters know all these different catch wrestling techniques, right? And so they were saying because you're a professional MMA fighter. So this might give you an example of like all the weird things that we hear, right? So someone's argument was that um, because people are professional MMA fighters, and that must mean they know all these different techniques that, especially the ones that we use in catch wrestling. But when you see them in practice or in MMA in the fights, a lot of these techniques aren't being done. So it doesn't go to show that they're not effective. What it goes to show is truly they just don't know them, because many times they're more effective than what we see happening in MMA. I think it's one of the reasons why um, I don't really, or maybe I kind of, I don't really watch a lot of MMA so much anymore because um, I I like, I don't know, I like really good grappling, or so when I don't like, so anyway, I've kind of fallen out of it, or fallen where I don't really watch it as much anymore, or as religiously or whatever. I'll tend to watch a little bit more of one championship because of the varying like martial art styles, and they'll mix in some kickboxing matches and stuff like that. So I tend to find that a little bit more interesting. But even then, I'll even be watching like those of you who are subscribed to this channel and watch a lot of the videos. Like, I've really kind of fallen back in love with sumo wrestling. And one of the things, say, even say, talking about like sumo wrestling, is that they're able to get some really cool moves that, again, also aren't being seen in MMA and this and that. But every once in a while, like one example would be like that one arm throwdown that, what was it, Khabib did, that, and like that video went viral, and then everyone was talking about like, oh, how DC was like, he was watching, he was really like, so Daniel Cormier was watching and was really excited about it and all that. But you don't necessarily see it being done in MMA, for various reasons, but it doesn't mean that it's not effective. But then in a sumo match, that same technique was used, so showing that it's effective. But it's just like sometimes in MMA or even in jiu-jitsu, there's kind of a way things are done. And so then these types of thinking, especially since jiu-jitsu is so popular, that becomes like the mainstream way of thinking when they're looking at fighting. So then a lot of like the whole notion about like saying like giving up your back is something wrong, and like an error or whatever, then what you'll have then is that a lot of these techniques that we consider defensive techniques, or techniques from Turtle, they're not used, they're not refined, they're not, or they're even discarded, so that you just wouldn't see it, or you don't see people practicing it. So then if the situation came up where they were in that kind of scenario, they might not know what to do. All right, so a lot of these techniques that are used in catch wrestling have not really like proliferated. So even though people like, so some, even though people might make that argument that, oh, a professional MMA fighter should know catch wrestling, and maybe they're not using these techniques because they might not work. Well, my argument is like, truly they just don't know it. And like, I teach at an MMA gym. I've sparred with the MMA team there. And actually, like, shout out to um, Fight Science MMA, because one of our fighters is going to be fighting in UFC this weekend, Ghost Pepper. Hopefully he wins. He's been winning a lot of his matches in Combate Americas, right? So that's like the MMA promotion that they try to like have a lot of people in this North and South America, so this continent. Um, but anyway, so even from there, or even all the like the different studios I've taught at, I see a lot of times people do not know that technique, or do not know a lot of catch wrestling techniques. So then that's why my point of view is that it's not that they know it and choose not to do it. It's just they just don't know it, right? Because jiu-jitsu has developed a certain way of being, a certain way of doing things, and then that kind of mentality is the mainstream. So that's what's going to be like done in the majority of the time, right? In the majority of schools, the majority of the of training scenarios, you're training for those types of attacks and counters and whatnot. So then that in turn becomes often what you will see in a fight. So like MMA fights and whatnot. So my point is that when you're seeing maybe like an old timer or some really cool old photographs of catch wrestling, you might say like, oh, maybe some of these techniques are some of them might be show holds, which is true. Some of them might just be um, holds that were done for pro wrestling or whatever, like when it became that coordinated dance between the two athletes. So some might be that, but then when you see an actual, say like a Joe Stecker or some of these other like really legit catch wrestlers, oftentimes they are showing. Maybe, well, there's one Joe Stecker picture where it's obvious that he's trying to demonstrate a move, and so he's trying to make it a little bit more open and more clear so that you can see what he's doing in the photograph. But he was doing like I believe it was like a calf slicer, and so you can so he did it a little bit more of a big version, like so that you can see or understand what he's doing and the position of his legs and whatnot. But it's still a legitimate, real hold that he was doing. So when you see some of these old pictures of a real move, doesn't mean you can't do them, right? And that's why I say like 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, it's like a lot of times or not a lot of times, the techniques that they took, they developed this whole style from it because they were able to do a lot of these things or get a lot of these holds in grappling, right? And then now we even see a lot of these moves that they've popularized, even happening in MMA, right? So a lot of people are really excited when they see a twister or whatever, which we call it like the guillotine, or people often call it wrestler's guillotine or whatever. It is, even in wrestling, it does have different names, but um, that's why you can't discount some of these old things, and it doesn't necessarily make catch wrestling too good to be true. Oftentimes, what it does is it makes your mindset, or it shows your understanding is more of the mainstream understanding, right? So there, right? Let's go and get to some of your comments. Frankie Cal, we need that catch wrestling book. Okay. All right, let's work on that. Okay, and then Frankie Cal, I think you you commented earlier. It's probably on something I was talking about. Says my wife gave up her back once. Now we're getting a divorce. Um, nice. So yeah, well, I don't know if you're sad or happy about the divorce, but um, I guess we'll keep moving on. Time moves on. Time marches on, right? So, hopefully everything works out for you. Um, yeah, so hopefully you guys understand my point where it's like it's not that catch wrestling is too good to be true when you see a lot of these strange moves that you don't understand. And actually, this kind of brings me to one of the things that we were talking about in the last live stream, like because we had a really great talk with a lot of the viewers on our YouTube channel and the Twitch channel. Um, so I think what we're going to also be doing is, besides just doing some breakdowns of like sumo wrestling or some MMA stuff, we want to try to bring to life some of these old techniques that you'll see in some of these really old wrestling manuals. So stuff from the 1800s, 1900s, and early 1900s. You can see better what was going on, because quite often, say like if you look at Farmer Burns manuals, like it was just a few pictures that were mailed to people around the country or whatever. So sometimes there's like these big jumps in between the movements because they didn't have video, right? So it kind of left a little to be desired in your imagination. So you're supposed to fill in um, the the move, right, using the description that was written and the images that you saw, but sometimes they don't quite match if you're not if you're not like catch wrestling minded or wrestling minded. So I think we're gonna be working on that as well, like trying to bring to life some of these old moves that might seem strange or impractical or whatever. A lot of them are like very, very great techniques. And we've done one. It was a few months ago. Where it was like a counter to being thrown. Um, because something similar was done in MMA. It was like one of Shinya Aoki's fights. He employed similar techniques to what Martin Burns did in his in his manuals, right? So we'll continue to try to, or we'll start trying to do more of those. So that's going to be one of our like our our upcoming projects. So if you have any other like things that you would like us to kind of help bring to life, just let me know. We'll go ahead and do it for you. Just so we give people an understanding that catch wrestling isn't too good to be true, but it's actually very good and it's very true, right? And of course, there's like distortions and stuff about what catch wrestling really is, and you'll see these pro wrestling stuff that kind of distort the understanding. But a lot of times when you see like one of the old time wrestlers showing some really great move, chances are it's a legit move, right? You just might not know how to do it, right? So coming from your background, if it's like a more of a modern grappling background, then you just might not understand how people got into that position or those positions, but they work, right? And you can do it. You just have to understand how it was done and how to maybe modify it for a modern grappling experience or modern grappling situation, right? Um, but yeah, it's not that they're fake moves or whatever, and a lot of them are really, really great moves. All right. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to ask. Um, we might keep this one short because I have to actually go teach uh, pretty soon. So I'd have to go drive. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask now. All right. Catch was all the rage back in the 60s with Titan and El Ring. Oh, for a second I thought it was French, but anyway, um, yeah. So Jack Dev Devini. Sorry if I misspelled or mispronounced your last name. Um, but yeah, thank you for the comment, Jack. So, yeah, you're going to be hearing a lot of that, and so even Osamu Matsunami, our friend in Japan, he also said that he like got into catch wrestling because of professional wrestling. Because oftentimes the words, especially in Japanese, are a little bit more interchangeable. Where Lancashire wrestling, catch wrestling, and professional wrestling were kind of like one at that time. Um, so you would see professional wrestling events being called like Lancashire wrestling and whatnot. So, but that's what got Osamu into wanting to learn the real thing because he enjoyed the pro wrestling. Right. So you'll see different times where, and even nowadays too, I think there's kind of, you're hearing the words or the term catch wrestling more and more. And so hopefully it's kind of raised, or there's like the public awareness of catch wrestling is increasing. So, let's try to keep that going. Let's try to keep real wrestling alive. I'm hoping that all of you can help with that. Um, so just know that there is kind of like a mainstream thought of grappling that is different from when catch wrestling was the mainstream thought, right? But it that um, doesn't mean that catch wrestling is no longer practical or some of these techniques are not good or not usable or whatever. No, they are good, and you can still use them in a modern grappling scenario. That's ultimately my point. So catch wrestling isn't too good to be true. It's actually really great, and you should probably learn it, right? And you should help keep it alive, right? Shinhei E, is it live? Um, Are you talking about the last comment about the old wrestling things? Maybe you can find it online. Maybe you can find some clips on it, somewhere online, probably even YouTube. All right. All right. So I just want to let people know. So if you're not in Los Angeles, if you're not in the East Coast, and if you want to learn authentic catch wrestling, you can join our Catch Wrestling Alliance CWA Academy. You can just go to our website. You can join there. We also have several like standalone courses available, whether it be no-gi judo or several different ones. We have one up there from our good friend John Strickland on the East Coast. He's the head coach of American Hook Wrestling. We also have one that I did where it was Chinese kickboxing. That's the other style that I teach at UCLA. I think Chinese kickboxing and catch wrestling have a good, like a good balance. So they mix together very, very well. So there's a lot of takedowns in Chinese kickboxing. So we have a video course up there. It's called Sanda and catch wrestling combinations. So we have standalone courses if you don't want to just do the Catch Wrestling Alliance Academy, but that is how you can become affiliated with Catch Wrestling Alliance if you do the academy. So we want to try to say we want to try to have it where it's like, say, if you don't want to get that involved, then you can still like take some of the other courses that we have. Right. You can also become a member of this channel if you want to support us. That is our YouTube channel. So if you're listening or watching on another platform, on our YouTube channel, you can become a member to support us. We have different styles or different tiers of membership, so you can support us there as well. Shinhei, so catch wrestling techniques is far more brutal than BJJ subs. Some of catch subs BJJ don't really use that often, like bulldog choke, hammerlock. Those are some examples. Yeah. So that's the thing. So it's, I think, kind of what I was saying earlier, where it's like you'll have this mainstream understanding or the mainstream way of doing things or the mainstream approach to grappling. So um, then if everyone's kind of doing the mainstream, or if the majority of people are doing the mainstream thing, then quite a lot of techniques aren't being taught. So then you're going to see it done less and less. And so then my argument would be like, say like if I show a technique and then someone says, oh, what about, like I don't see it in MMA or whatever, like, or this would be a no and whatever, then if I say, like, it's just these people don't know these techniques, it doesn't mean that they're not like valid, right? It doesn't mean they're fake techniques and whatnot. They're actually really great techniques. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Shinhei. All right, Shinhei's actually in New Zealand, so I wonder what time it is. It's already it's nighttime here, so probably like early morning, or I don't know, or maybe afternoon, right? Sorry, well, who knows? But they're in the future from LA. Right. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and sign off now. So thanks everyone for watching and listening. We're available as a podcast as well, wherever you listen. So thank you, and together let's help keep real wrestling alive.